So, you hear about a crime being reported, right? But have you ever really stopped to think about what happens next? It's not just a straight shot to a dramatic courtroom showdown. It's a whole journey with specific steps and stages, all now guided by the new Bharatiya Nagarik Suraksha Sanhita, or BNSS. So today, let's walk that path together, from the moment a crime is reported all the way to a final verdict. Okay, picture this. A crime happens. A report is filed. That single action sets in motion a huge, complex machine. But what does that machine actually do? How does a complaint, just a piece of paper or a phone call, turn into a full-blown case that's argued in front of a judge? Let's break it all down. The entire complicated process really boils down to three core stages. That's it: investigation, inquiry, and trial. Each one has a totally different purpose, and each one is run by a different key player. Think of this as the fundamental roadmap for every criminal case in the system. So our journey has to start at the beginning, with stage one, the investigation. This is where the rubber really meets the road, and it's a mission that belongs almost entirely to the police. Under the BNSS, investigation has a very specific meaning. It's pretty much all the work that goes into collecting evidence. It's the fact-finding mission. But here's the crucial part, the detail that matters a lot. This is the job of a police officer, and explicitly not a magistrate. That separation of powers is built into the system right from the get-go. And this is what that investigation typically looks like. An investigating officer, the IO, gets assigned to the case. They're out there at the scene of the crime, talking to witnesses, collecting physical evidence. Fingerprints, DNA, the works. Their one and only goal is to piece together what actually happened, based on solid facts and evidence. After all that digging and collecting, the investigation leads to this huge moment, the filing of the police report. And it can really only go one of two ways. If the police think, yep, we've got enough here to make a case, they file what's called a charge sheet. But if they conclude there just isn't enough evidence, they file a closure report. This is the first major fork in the road for any case. All right, so once the police file that report, their part of the journey is mostly done. The case now leaves their hands and officially enters the world of the judiciary. This brings us to stage two, the inquiry. And you can really think of this stage as a critical judicial filter. This is where you hear this big legal term, cognizance. It sounds complicated, but honestly, all it means is that for the very first time, a judge is officially looking at the case file. They're applying their judicial mind to the facts that the police have gathered to decide if there's really a case here at all. Which, of course, leads to a massive question. If the police file a charge sheet and say, we have a solid case, does the magistrate just have to nod and agree? Are they just bound by what the police found? The answer is a huge, emphatic no. A magistrate is not a rubber stamp for the police. They have to use their own independent judgment. They'll go through all the evidence themselves and decide if there's what's called a prima facie case, basically a case at first glance. And this is where you can see the real power of this inquiry stage. If a judge looks at everything the police brought them and decides it's just not strong enough, they can discharge the accused right then and there. It's the system's way of saying there isn't enough here to put you through a whole trial. Go, live your life. But on the other hand, if the magistrate does agree that there's a real case to be answered, the inquiry ends with a very formal step, the framing of charges. This is the official list of accusations the person has to face, and it's the final green light for the last act, the trial. And that brings us to the main event, stage three, the trial. This is what everybody pictures when they think of the justice system. It's where the evidence gets put to the ultimate test, where arguments are made, and where the final, life-changing question of guilt or innocence gets answered. Because once those charges are officially framed, everything changes. All the preliminary work is done. Now, the real game begins. We are in a full-blown courtroom battle where someone's freedom is literally on the line. A trial follows a very clear, structured path. It kicks off at the accused entering a plea, guilty or not guilty. Assuming they plead not guilty, the prosecution presents its entire case. Then, the defense gets its turn to challenge everything. After both sides have had their say and file arguments, the judge delivers the judgment. And if there's a conviction, there's a whole separate process just for sentencing. Now, it's easy to think of this as a neat, clean 1, 2, 3 process. But, the real world is a bit more complicated. The lines between these stages can sometimes get a little blurry. Under very specific circumstances, they can actually overlap. So let's look at the rules here. Can an investigation continue while the inquiry is going on? Yes, absolutely. Like when the police are doing a further investigation. Can an investigation even happen during a trial? Yes, if a court orders it. But look at that last line. There is one hard and fast, unbreakable rule. Inquiry and trial can never happen at the same time. The inquiry has to be 100% complete before a trial can even begin. Okay, so let's just quickly recap the whole journey. It's a three-part story. The police investigate to find the facts. The magistrate inquires to act as a crucial check on those facts. And finally, the court conducts the trial to reach a verdict. And if there's one thing to remember, it's that the inquiry is the mandatory gateway. Every single case has to pass through it before it can ever get to a trial. So we've mapped out the how. We know the path a case takes. But that leaves us with a much bigger question, doesn't it? The why. Why is it built this way? Why have these specific checks and balances? How does this whole system, this journey from investigation to inquiry to trial, actually work to balance the immense power of the state against the fundamental rights of one single person? That's really the question at the very heart of this entire process.